I'm Shelton Wilder, and welcome to Wilder Possibilities Podcast, where each episode follows an entrepreneur's journey into the transformative power of that light bulb moment where everything clicks. I call that the click. Those pivotal points that redefine our futures, illuminate paths to success, and even change the world. Now let's get wilder. Hi friends, welcome back to Wilder Possibilities Podcast. Today I have one of my dear friends, longtime friend, and it's Gwen Dittmar, and she has Gwen Dittmar Consulting, and she's going to tell us all about her today and her journey. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited that it worked out this month.
Yes, I know. I film it all in one day each month.
Smart. So efficient, productive.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Grant's time is, we got to get him
valuable.
here. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
And, I always ask the question. There's not like a ton of questions I ask.
Right.
The main question is when did you get the click?
The click.
For what you're doing now, and tell everybody what you're doing now.
So right now I do coaching.
Yes.
And I do another modality that I call somatic medicine. It's a blend of somatic work, of limbic retraining, which is how we rewire our brain.
Oh, wow.
I do nervous system regulation, somatic healing, as well as breath work.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of all encompassed into one. And I've had a couple people recently tell me, oh my gosh, I know how you should talk about this.
Okay.
Yes. So they say it's coaching, but it's more than coaching.
Okay.
It's somatic energy healing and almost shamanic-like, but it's more than that. And you don't have to go into some kind of ceremony for 8 hours to do it.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, it's like therapy, but it's way more than therapy. And I just had people tell me like, wow, I didn't know I could do this much healing in one short conversation. Amazing. Because I felt like over the years, I guess the click for me started when I was a little girl.
Okay.
And I definitely had a lot of visions. I would see a lot of things. And I didn't know if there was something wrong with me. I thought I was crazy.
Oh, you thought it was that?
I would see things that were going to happen in the future, or I would see things that were happening. Yeah, so there was one story that I told my mom. I said, the neighbor, I think, is like with another woman or with another man and doing something that they shouldn't be doing. I was probably 8 or 9.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Like, how old?
Know.
8 or, okay, you're just like, I think something's going on over there.
Something's going on. Something's not right, Mom. And she'd be like, okay, don't tell anybody, So I think a part of me just felt like there was something wrong with it.
Like shameful.
Yeah, totally.
What was happening with the neighbor?
Lo and behold, about 6 months later, it comes out that the neighbor was having an affair. And they ended up getting separated and divorced. And then the family moved away. And it was like one of our really, really dear friends. So it was like that kind of stuff would happen. And I would have really weird dreams that would then, certain things would come true. So, but I also at the same time had gotten a lot of messaging of like, don't talk about that.
That's so Southern. It's like sweep it under the rug. Wait, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Philadelphia, but my mom was very like proper.
Yeah, I knew you were going to
say. Nice, kind.
Yeah.
Be good. Be quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, I think the neighbor could be having an affair, it's like, whoa.
Or like another one of my dad's like business colleagues. We went away on a business trip up in Lake George in New York. And I was just like, Mom, there's something bad about that guy. He's doing something bad. Like, I think it turned out that he was like drug trafficking or something.
Oh, so you're this like little.
So, I mean, I would say that was a little click, but I didn't feel safe to really follow it. And then when I got, in high school, I had a near-death experience, and that was another little click for me.
Whoa, what happened?
I had been struggling with some illness, and, I didn't really know what it was. And kind of same thing, I was seeing certain things. And so, again, I thought, oh, my God, there's something wrong here. So I just tried to be quiet about it, and then it kept escalating, and then eventually I had this near-death experience. And afterwards, my mom was like, what's going on? And I said, well, I've been struggling with this stuff, but I didn't think I could talk about it. I thought there was something wrong with me.
But so near death meaning, can you say what happened?
I was in the ambulance.
Did you fall?
No. Well, we had taken a flight to visit my brother. He was older than I was.
Okay.
Just the two of us went to go visit him. So we took a flight to Lake Erie on those little puddle jumpers from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then when we were flying back, I had been having a lot of these. So I was having a lot of episodes of like dizziness, of like ringing, hearing loss, vertigo, where I would just be out on the floor. And so I didn't really know that, I didn't know what was going on with me. And, interestingly, why would I not have shared that with my parents, right? But I thought there was something, I internalized it.
Yeah.
And I thought there was something going on. And so, after, we were on this flight and I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to get ill. And so I went to the bathroom. I was in the bathroom. I was about 14.
Oh, okay. This is young.
I was young.
Grade
Yeah. 9th, 10th grade. And I was out, in the bathroom. I couldn't move. I couldn't function. The vertigo was intensified being in the plane. And then, they were trying to land the plane and they said, you have to have your daughter come out. She has to be in a seat. So they had to call air traffic control to get approval to land the plane with me laying on the floor. Imagine laying also too on a bathroom floor in an airplane.
I mean, yeah. You weren't
faking it.
No. Whoa.
So then, they landed the plane and I was trying to crawl out of the plane. And then I got on one of those little buses that takes you back to the terminal. And and I went out. And they put me in, they called an ambulance out to the tarmac. I had there was a police escort taking me to the hospital, but it was in the ambulance that I fully went. And I remember, leaving my body. It was a very strange experience of looking down at my body.
Your soul
and it
came
was
out.
flatline.
No.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I could see from all these different perspectives. I could see through the eyes of the EMT.
Yes,
workers.
they're probably freaking out.
And I could see through my mom. I could see my mom. I could see through her looking down on me, and I could feel what she was feeling. I could see through myself. It was, and simultaneously feeling that very common what you hear about with near-death experiences of being pulled out, into this light. And it's just the most exquisite feeling ever. And not wanting to come back because it's you just want to go.
And how did you?
But at the same time, I could see my mom,
suffering,
hysterically crying. And I knew that my mom had lost her sister, her father, and she had lost her mother. And she was carrying quite a bit of grief, I think, for a long time. And so I just, I kept feeling this pull of wanting to go.
That's really real.
I could see her screaming in the ambulance. And so, I made the choice to come back. And
you can feel that you made the choice.
You can feel whether you're going to keep going and whether you come back. Yeah. And I remember when I came back, I just felt very, very connected to wanting to help people. And then I was really ill for probably another couple of years. And for a while, they couldn't figure out what was going on with me. So I was going to all these children's hospitals and getting all these testing and MRIs and stuff. Anyway, they figured out that it was this thing called Meniere's disease that typically only elderly get. And
What is it? What does it do?
It's an inner ear disease where you have these 3 tubes. So it's not even in your middle ear that you can get to it. It's back in your brain. And so there's fluid in these 3 tubes.
Yeah.
And so if there's a millimeter of more fluid in one of the tubes, it throws everything off. So they tried to use medication, and I was very not interested in medication.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I was I wanted to be holistic.
Wow.
And I remember, eventually going to we went to this specialist at Temple University in Philadelphia. And he was his name, Dr. Ronas, Max Ronas.
You
He
love
was
him.
like the nutty professor.
Yes.
But he was so incredible. And
Thank God
this
for
was
him.
kind of like one of my first introductions to what it would feel like to have somebody who like is really hearing you and really understanding you. Because I think like, you know, as a kid, I kind of always felt different. I felt a little weird. I felt a little strange with some of these, you know, things that I was seeing or feeling about people.
That's intense.
Right?
I mean,
and so this doctor, he was so healing. And he was just like, he told my parents that they had to stay out of the room because they wanted to like fix everything. You know, they wanted to know what to do, how to fix it. And this doctor would just bring me into the room and he'd be like, come on, kid, like, tell me what's going on, you know? What's going on? And he was so, yeah. And so after that experience with him of like going back to see him, and he eventually figured out what was going on with me.
he's the one.
Yeah. And
thought of
he
it.
wanted to put me on certain medications, you know, one of them being when you have these episodes where it's like the vertigo, it's like the world is spinning one way, the room is spinning another way, you're spinning. It just feels, it's like the worst feeling.
Yeah.
It's so ungrounding. And, you know, he wanted to give me, you know, stuff like benzos, you know, to help calm you down.
Oh, God.
And help you like ride it out. And even that, I remember feeling like one time I did take it and thinking to myself, like,
Oh, no.
I don't know if I can do this because this is so like relaxing. I don't want to go near that stuff. Like, I don't trust it.
Young, you
Yeah.
knew that.
Yeah.
These doctors, they just didn't know.
You know, and he also tried to help with like
Yeah.
other, like he recommended meditation and some other things. And I think just that being listened to and being heard, that was huge. That was huge. And I remember like after that experience, that was like the big click for me of thinking like, I want to help people who are not well, because I remembered feeling so alone and so different. You know, because all my friends were like partying and, you know, hanging out with boys and going to school and having fun. And I was having all these episodes. Like in my junior and senior year, I had one of those like almost every day.
What?
Either in the morning or in the afternoon.
So could you go to school?
I would just push myself to go either after I'd had it or I would leave early. Yeah. And I just like, I have kind of a personality that just keeps pushing and driving and going, and which can be a benefit.
Yeah.
And it can also not
strength and weakness.
not be a benefit sometimes, right? Of learning how to stop and rest and take care of myself. So I just, you know, I really felt like I wanted to help people. And I think I was on a quest to figure out how I could do that.
Yeah.
And so I went, you know, into this realm of wanting to work with like more counseling, and I worked in a treatment center right out, like in college.
Oh, you did? Oh, got it. Okay. How'd you get to LA? Yeah.
That was, so I worked there, and then I worked after that place because that was intense. Like as a 20-year-old, like working at an inpatient like treatment center, and it was for eating disorders and like other comorbidities. And, you know, it was tough. Like people, you know, wanting to commit suicide and having to do takedowns and all this stuff. I was simultaneously doing research at Penn. And then I met a doctor there, and she was like, come work here. You could go back to school, get your PhD, and like really help people. And so I kind of went that route for a little while. And then at one point,
how you
that's how I got
to LA?
Well, she was like, then she eventually told me the truth. She was like, I don't think you should go into academia because it's tough. It's very political. You probably won't make a lot of money. She's like, there's going to be a really big boom in like pharmaceutical, biotech, and this new thing called devices. And she was very cutting edge. I love her too, Dr. Mary Morrison.
Wow.
And she's like, I think you should go into the pharmaceutical route. You know, and as a young, like 20-something, I'm like, wow, I can make money. I can travel. right?
But the pharmaceutical meaning like these medical devices where you go doing that medical device sales?
Well,
or just pharma
research.
Sales? Oh, research.
Yeah. And so doing, on compounds, and the devices didn't come for like a couple, maybe like 5 years. So I like put my time in, and that is how I came out here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I worked for a couple different companies in Pennsylvania and in Delaware, AstraZeneca, and then I came out here with them.
Oh, with the pharma company.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I was always seeking. I was always reading books about spirituality, and I was like delving into different spiritual practices of like Buddhism or like Hinduism.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was kind of living this like very double life.
Yeah. Because so different. I mean,
it was.
Yeah.
It was. But I think I loved that realm of like the pharma because there were treatments that were helping people that didn't, that weren't well. And I felt like driven towards that.
Yeah.
But then I think I somehow wanted to blend it. I wanted to be able to do both. And then when I came out here, then I like one thing after another just started to unfold, like beautiful little breadcrumbs.
Okay.
Like just an unfolding and like total flow. Like I met 3 people who went to this school where I went and got my master's in spiritual psychology.
Yes. That's what, yeah.
And then from there, I met people that like, I started doing more trainings and coaching and in energy healing. But simultaneously, I was still working, in both worlds. So I started having like a coaching practice, but then I was also doing this very like analytical scientific research.
So you were doing both.
I was doing both.
How long were you doing both?
10 years.
Wow. So when did you finally stop with the
2017?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you just were like,
and that was like another little like click
there. Okay.
Yeah.
What happened?
I had wanted to for so many years,
but I guess the money's really good.
I made a decent living.
Yeah.
And I also too had a lot of flexibility.
You did?
Because I had like at that point had my own consulting.
For so long, too.
I'd had my own consulting, so I left like working full time for companies, and then I started my own thing, and then I was able to choose projects, and it was really like I loved it. And since then, learning about human design and getting certified in human design, I realized why that was so great for me, because like as a manifester, I'm really here to like start and initiate new things and then kind of like hand it off to people to do the generative work and like seeing it out.
What's the human design? What do you call, what is that?
I know you for sure you're a manifesting generator. You have to be.
I mean, I'm a big manifestor. Yes.
Well, yes. So manifesting generators have manifestor energy, but they also have generative energy. And they have generative energy that can just go, go, go. They like to do lots of different things.
Yes.
So they like to have lots of different projects going on.
Yeah.
They also, I would bet you probably have at least a 4 somewhere in your human design in your profile number.
Oh, so that's
we got to do your human design.
Okay.
After this, we should have done it before.
Dang.
That's
okay.
All right. We'll do it after.
Okay.
But so they have manifestor energy, but they're a combination of both manifestor and manifesting and generator. So they're known as like a manifesting generator. And they have very quick, like fast, lots of different things. They have lots of different things that light them up. Okay. And if they're not lit up by what they're doing, they're going to feel really drained, really tired. They're not going to feel like the natural manifesting generator energy that they have. Yeah.
Wow.
I would be shocked. Well, you'll probably have to put it in the podcast notes if I'm wrong.
Okay. So but that's what it is. It's the human design is coming up with these numbers where you
it's like it's just an amazing philosophy.
Yeah.
So I mean, once I got certified and trained in that and realized like what I am, that made a lot of sense as to why I'm a manifester.
Okay.
So I'm really good at, and I think that's why I was good at that pharma work because, they would say, okay, here's a compound or here's a device. We need to study it, right? We need to create like a program of all these different trials to run and to collect all the data and then eventually submit it to the FDA over, the course of like 5, 15 years. But when they would have all these different studies, they would say, okay, this study is going to be 1 year. This study is going to be another year,
it's a whole year for a study?
I mean, there's so many studies.
Yeah,
in it. I mean, this is why, so this was interesting. So I'm super out there, like I'm all about holistic energy, vibration, frequency. And I think like we're going to start to see a lot of incredible healing modalities that have to do with sound and vibration and frequency and just alternatives, right? So I'm totally into the alternatives.
Yes.
However, I have this interesting background in very allopathic, very traditional.
Yes.
And what the gift that it gave me is that there's room for both. I think it has taught me, and that lesson applies to everything in life. That there's room,
my way to the highway.
Everything.
Yeah.
And like, because constantly people, and I would question myself too. People would question me like, oh, how can you work for a pharmaceutical company or, big pharma? It's so bad. It's, there's pros and cons, I think, to any industry and to any profession. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the coaching industry or in the podcasting industry or in real estate, right? That have like heartfelt intentions. And then there's people that don't. And I think that's the same. You're like,
I'm like, well, that could possibly be true.
Right? And then I think there's people in pharma. I think there's people in architecture. There's people in, and working with clients as a coach has taught me that too, because you hear the nitty gritty, you hear the beautiful, you hear the beautiful mess.
Wow.
Right? Of all the different industries.
Yeah.
And you get to, I get to learn that there really is no right or wrong. There's like no good or bad.
Yeah.
It's just like everything here in our life is like for us. It's an opportunity.
My favorite statement.
Everything's an opportunity.
For me.
Right?
Not to me. No victim.
For me. Yeah. And so, a lot of times, like, I would kind of want to leave that industry and go full-time into coaching and healing work and feel like, like, why am I, like, not leaving? Or why am I afraid? Or why isn't it happening? Or why isn't it clear to me? And honestly, like, God, higher power, source would always make it abundantly clear to me. I learned to stop feeling like a victim, and I started to learn to say, okay, I'm going to ask you to show me when and if it is time ever for me to leave this and go fully into this.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to let you decide, right? Because like, what do I know?
Yeah.
Maybe higher power, God doesn't want me just one or the other.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because it had been going on for so long. And so finally, like miracles just started to happen that every time I would ask, like, is it really good for me to stay in this industry that feels like sometimes, makes me question things or is there greed? Are we really helping people? Are we making people more sick?
That's what makes me nervous. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's like a very real question. And I think, there's other like modalities that taught me how to look at everything and really be honest with myself and ask those hard questions and turn it over to something greater than me while I still took action in my life that I wanted to do, like spend time here too, right?
Yeah.
And so every time I would ask that question, I kid you not, there would be somebody in my life, whether it was a friend, a family member, like a fellow, that would say, I just got diagnosed with this disease. Oh, I don't know what my treatment options are. I was given an option to go into this clinical trial. I know you work in pharma. Do you know anything about this? And it would be an opportunity to like truly be of service look through, an informed consent for like an experimental drug or for an experimental procedure.
You would know how to read that. Like if somebody gave that to me, I'd be like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Great. Just sign it, I guess.
And so it would be, sometimes these like 50, 100 page documents that people would feel so overwhelmed with, like, is the risk to benefit ratio like worthwhile? Should I go through all these potential risks in order to have these potential benefits. Like, what if I don't get the drug? What if I get placebo? You know, and so I would be able to sit down with people and really go through like line by line, like this is what this kind of like when probably you have a contract or some type of legal situation.
We have to go through everything.
And we look at those documents and it's so overwhelming.
So many pages.
Thank God for lawyers that are great, you know, because sometimes I look at those things and I don't know what it says.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I'm just going to turn it over and I'm going to trust. You know, I'm going to trust that if I'm ever meant to really leave this and go here full time. And I think there's also been an interesting lesson that once that finally happened.
Yeah, 2017, right?
I did get a very clear sign. Like I had hired a coach in 2016, and that's when I had also started doing breath work.
That was your big thing. I feel like you did a lot with breath work.
Yeah, and
right?
I still do.
Yeah, you still. Yeah.
I still come back to that as like a modality that I think is so powerful. It's like it's inside of you. You just took a deep breath.
A deep breath. I know.
It is like your own medicine. It is your own healer.
Yeah.
It knows exactly what's right for you.
Where to go.
Totally. What to reveal to you. You know, like what.
Yeah.
And you can experience some of these altered states of consciousness. And I think that was a big thing for me being a sober woman.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily want to, I had a couple of experiences and like drugs were never my thing. So it didn't feel like a violation for me because I wasn't like interested or excited to do it. But it felt like something greater than me was like pulling me to. But I will say, like breath work, I've had way more like depth and shamanic like experiences doing breath work and what it has like revealed to me about, you know, my own healing, my body, about the world, about like my lineage, about, you know, projects and creativity. I just feel like it is such a powerful resource, breath work.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
So it was like through breath work. And then I had hired a coach because I'd had coaches because I was a coach and I wanted to believe in my own medicine. But I hired somebody that was like really scary for me. It was a scary investment.
Yeah.
It's the most I had ever invested in a coach. And it was like, you know, and the coach was like, you're not allowed to use a credit card. You're not allowed to like pull this from savings. You have to go out and create this investment in the next 2 months. And if you can create it in the next 2 months, then I'll work with you. And if you can't, then I'm not going to work with you because it's going to mean that you're not really a 10. You're not all in. This isn't something that you really, really want.
Oh my God.
You
wow.
know? Like it was
that is
tough.
A boundary. Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
It was tough, you know, but I think I was really ready. I was ready.
Wow.
I was ready.
Was it helpful?
Yeah, because
you had to step up.
I stepped up.
Yeah. Wow.
And I proved to myself because I had always had, you know, like maybe 1 to 5 coaching clients on the side while I was also doing this work. And it was super fulfilling. Like I loved it, you know, and I think it made this work, I guess, I don't want to say bearable because that is a little lower on the frequency.
Yeah.
It
but
made
it balanced it or
something. It balanced it out. That's a good reframe. Yeah. As you drink from your shell in the couture.
My shell,
you gotta balance it out, right?
Yes.
You gotta be your weird.
Totally.
And I think that was a big thing too, was like I had finally got to a point in that career where I was totally myself.
Oh, wow.
You know, and so for so many years, like I was, you know, making myself a particular way in order to be, well, like number one, when you're working in that field, you know, people look at you and think certain things, you know, they make judgments based on what you look like. So I was young, I was blonde, I was, you know, and so I think they thought I was not intelligent or like they could, you know, kind of, manipulate. And so like I just had to like prove myself that like no, I'm here to, you know, manage what you're doing with this trial, and I'm also here to like make sure you're following the rules and that you're not,
and
doing like unethical,
unethical
practices. And so I had gotten to a point in that work where like a lot of people were starting to like hire me to go in because I had this skill of
That's
like
a new
knowing.
Skill. Yeah.
Well, I started to be able to come full circle and be able to use what I had and heal and really accept, right, what I had when I was a little girl.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's
and I was able to start to bring it in and say, something's off here. Something's going on. Something is fishy, And I also had this interesting quality. I'm not sure if you got like what I was like, people throughout my life would just like open up and like
tell you things,
tell me everything,
yes.
Like we would be over in the corner. They would just be telling me everything.
Wow. Yeah.
And I had finally like accepted that as I guess a gift,
Of course.
And like, how can I really, because I enjoyed that too. I loved people and I loved holding space for people, which also human design validated for me.
Yeah.
That was like definitely a thing. And so, so then I would go in, and because I had done a lot of my own work, a lot of my own healing and acceptance of who I was, I would be able to say to like the investigator or the person, the CEO that was operating the research business, and say to them, like, I think, can we have a conversation,
Wow.
just a private conversation.
Yeah.
And I would go in and I would just say like, you're like a top cardiologist in your field, or you're like one of the best like research centers in this city or this state. And there's something going on here that's really off, and before I, put my report together and go back to my company or whatever, I just really want to know what's going on.
Oh, wow.
And
You're
I would
almost
share,
like coaching them.
Yeah, I would share that, like I know from my own experience that like when I was struggling, or when I didn't feel like I could be myself, or when I was, moving through my own high functioning alcoholism, before I became sober, like those things, or when I was struggling with familial issues, like that leaked into other areas of my life, and it didn't make me my best. Like, what's going on? And a couple,
would they open up?
they would like close the door.
Ma'am, we're gonna. Yeah. Okay. She just literally saw through me.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was like what also helped me like build my coaching.
Oh, wow.
Is because I just started to really take risks and like tell people what I was seeing and what I was feeling.
Like what you saw as an 8-year-old, you're like, something's going on.
And the more
so you're like, we're going to need to talk here about your,
right.
But that's, I mean, that is a risk though.
It was a big risk because you're definitely not supposed to do that in like pharmaceutical and clinical research.
Something is up.
Right.
Sir.
But that school that I went through, it was huge in helping me heal like so many layers where I had just like dimmed myself so much.
Oh, wow. And you just didn't want to see that. You didn't want that.
Want to live that
you didn't
way
want
anymore.
her out. You didn't want her to see stuff anymore because that was kind of, you were shamed into.
And I think it was also too a part of the reason why I drank. I drank like a little excessively was because I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin, because like when I would be around people, I could like see things, or I could feel things, or I just I didn't know what to do with all that as a young person, as a teenager, as a 20-something.
Wow. Yeah.
So I would just like drink to kind of dumb it all down so I didn't have to feel things. Feel things that were uncomfortable, but then also feel things that were intuitive, but that were uncomfortable.
Also, yeah.
Because like, what do you do with that? Especially when you don't have somebody who's helping you know what to do with it. And so I think over that 10 years that I did both, I was doing a lot of investigating of like, okay, what is that? Is that real? Am I just making it up? Am I fooling myself? Does that really happen inside of me? And then like realizing, no, it actually does. Okay, well now like, what do I do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you tell people these things? They don't want to usually hear this.
That's my question. Do you, like with your coaching clients, can you see things?
Yes.
And you tell them?
As long as they want to know.
And so you do.
And I ask them, I
just
say, like,
hey.
do you want me, do you want me to listen? Do you want to do healing work? Do you want like deep, like kind of more somatic healing and breath work? Do you want to do coaching? Do you want to approach this from like, more
Both
of the human?
Yeah.
Or do you want to kind of do all of it? Like right before I came here, I had a session with like a long-standing client, and she's moved through some big things in life, with like family and family planning and that type of thing. And and she's like, I don't know, like, because I also like to teach my clients, because I don't want them to have to be reliant on me. I want to empower them to be their own healer,
love that.
to be their own, guide, and know how to take care of themselves, right? It's like, we don't want to have that karma of people like reliant on us.
No.
Right?
No. Give them some tools.
Yeah. And so she was like, well, I've tried to process this with myself, and I just, based on like what I've learned from you, and this just feels so big. I just don't know if I'm like clicking, And I think that's normal, right? Like we all need people that we can turn to.
Yes, for sure. Yes. I'm not trying to do it on myself.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have people that support you.
Yes. We have to have that.
You have to. I think the most successful people have that.
For sure. And then, so when you say somatic, what is the definition of somatic?
Is that? So your soma is your body, but it's not it is your physical body, but it's also your emotions that like live in your body.
Yes.
Right? So it's real. Like from traditional Chinese medicine, I went to that school for a year, but I realized like this is intense.
Oh, to do like acupuncture?
They're very intelligent doctors. They go to school for like 4 years, just like regular doctors.
I had.
That's like beautiful
when
medicine.
I first got sober. That was the trauma healing that I did with this man named Ching, and he did the acupuncture. And
did you take herbs too, or you just
I did that? But we would do. He put the acupuncture in, and then we would go through the trauma talking as well together.
Wow!
In the session,
so he was probably doing somatic healing with you while he was doing like energy healing, right? So he was like reprogramming your meridians and how the energy was flowing through it versus it kind of getting stuck in your liver of anger or your pancreas or your kidneys of fear.
100%. I mean, I believe it was the reason I was able to get pregnant so easily and like removed so many demons and past traumas, and it was really powerful.
Yeah. So that's kind of what it is. So like somatic experiencing and like somatic healing work is that, the way that I've been trained and the way that I do it with clients is really just having them close their eyes if they feel safe. Yeah. Sometimes when people have a lot of trauma, they don't feel safe like closing their eyes. So we start off by doing it, where they're still here present in the room. But if they can close their eyes, I find like meditation that allows you to really go inward versus when your eyes are open, your eyes are just like incredible organ that are connected to your brain. So they're taking in everything and they're just like, they're working and they're on your behalf, like putting all these signals, into your brain. So, closing their eyes and really tuning into, let's say, for instance, somebody has an issue of, I'm just trying to think of like a couple recent clients without divulging their confidentiality.
Of course.
But like, let's say for instance, somebody has had a miscarriage, right? Or somebody is really struggling with a very critical mother, right? And that's like really triggering them.
Yeah.
And so, just having them close their eyes and like asking, okay, when you reflect on that critical mother and all the things she said to you that just really hurt you, and why can't she just be unconditionally loving and accepting and encouraging me, right? It's like, oh, I feel it, right above my belly button or in my heart or in my throat. Okay, what is that energy? Well, it's like, I don't know, it feels heavy, it feels tight, it feels like constriction, or it's like a choking feeling. And then like asking them the color. So when you have them de-identify from the thoughts, right, and the story, we know this from like, doing story work, is that when you can remove the story and then you can go into like, where is it actually in your body? Because your body holds so much, right? You like trauma, it holds stories, it holds memories, it holds energy. So when you can go to the wisdom of your body, then like you can learn to be your healer. Right. And so then also too, when you de-identify from the story, or let's say labeling it as like, oh, like I have abandonment issues with my mom.
Or she's so mean.
Right. We can get like caught on, or like I'm anxious. We can get caught with these labels. So it's like the somatic work helps you not attach to the label and then really move into the wisdom of like, why is that thing there? Even things we don't like, you know, like I've done this work with people with like addiction or eating disorders. One person in particular, I can remember, like a huge influencer and really struggled with like an eating disorder. And so, you know, after a few sessions, we'd built trust. And so I said, let's go into it. Like, let's see, why is it there?
Yeah.
What is it wanting of you? What is it wanting to communicate with you? What does it want to tell you?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, you know, this is like something that happens. I'm not, you know, a therapist, but like in IFS therapy, integrated family systems, it's like you learn all these different parts of who you are, right? We have all these parts. Like we have the martyr, we have the victim, but then we also have the empowered woman, and we have the person that seeks feedback and like takes it, right? and doesn't listen to the victim part. But when we try to push these parts aside that we don't like, the anxious part or the perimenopausal part or the, you know, the addictive part, it's like they get bigger when we don't actually look at them.
Yeah, you can't just shove it away. You have to like, invite it in.
Or it'll just keep coming back, and it comes back with kind of a vengeance until
the lesson, till you learn it.
Right?
I'm really there with you.
So, you know, when like we actually let this part be there of like, oh, okay, yeah, my mom's mean, right? Okay, well, where do you feel that in your body? What does it look like? What's the temperature? What's the color? And then they become less identified with like the story and the thought of like, my mom is mean.
Yeah.
And they become aware of this energy that's inside of them, and they can kind of pull it out and have it sit in the chair next to them. And then they can kind of talk to it of like, okay, like, what do you want to say? And then it's fascinating to see these parts and what they want to say. And then I guide them through a process of like, when did it first land in your body? What was happening in your world when it first landed? Like, why did it come in? What was its purpose? What was it? And most of the time, these things that we don't like or that are like ruining our life, they actually have been trying to help us. It's just we have to change the conversation. We have to actually be able to see it for what it is. And then like I help people do like breath work to clear that energy out. Like, and you know, you ask that energy, like, where does it want to go? Where would it be willing to go so that you can have that space in your heart or your belly or your throat back? And then like doing through your breath, this like, and this somatic work, this exchange of energy of like bringing your light of who you fully are, your soul, like back into your body and letting it move back into your heart, where this other energy has just kind of been taking up space and blocking you, and then pulling that out and moving it out to where, whatever, to the sun where it can be of use, or, you know, into a hole in the universe where it can create a new star, or
oh my gosh,
it could be composted into the earth to make that amazing eucalyptus tree that you have, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, and so it's blending each of those things. And then like once people go through this, like several, you know, some people it's, you know, 1 month, some people it's a couple, 3 months, some people they have a lot more that's there that needs to come and clear. So it could be like 6 months, but.
So is that usually your different time frames like that? Or do people stay with you for a long time, like longer? Or do you try to work with them for a while, clear things, and then move up? Like what is your...
I mean, it's a little bit of both. Okay. I mean, I think it kind of depends on the person. But I also, like I said, I want the person to be empowered, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some people where I don't hear from them for like 10 years, and they're like, I have another big thing happening,
Like, can you help? Oh,
right. And I'm like,
amazing.
I'm ready for like this, I always tell people it's like a spiral. It's like I think, yes, we want to go on this trajectory up, but I think we're also like experiencing things in these spirals. Like if you look at women, right? Like we go through an interesting spiral as women of we learn a lesson about who we are as a woman when we first get our period, right? Mm-hmm. Or we're going through puberty and we're awkward.
Yeah.
So and then we learn who we are as a woman in a whole nother way, again, around the spiral when we become, or if we become mothers, right?
Yeah, it's
and then we learn about who we are as women through the next layer of a spiral when we move through this other stage, right? Of moving from the mother into kind of like the wise, wild one of like, I'm no longer in business for babies.
For babies.
I'm like in business for me. Yeah. And I'm in business to really do the things that I came here to do.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Before I turn into that other spiral of like the crone,
What's the crone?
The crone is like the elder.
Oh,
you know, and she just brings like a totally different level of wisdom.
Yeah.
But it's like all parts we have all of these parts. You still have a maiden inside of you, right? You still have like a mother energy, but you also have the wild, right? The wild one that's like this like post deep maternal years that starts to become more living for herself, and I think that's like some of the spirituality and the rite of passage for women when they're going through perimenopause, because like I was really thrown by it.
Oh yeah.
And this whole thing that I've gone through with my life of like the physiological, the very scientific, but also the deep spiritual, it's really helped me like at different points in my life and I think that's why some clients seek me out is I'm very out there. Like I'm like, traveling in the ethers and like doing the shamanic stuff and the quantum human design stuff. But I'm also like super rooted here that you do need to also keep spreadsheets while you're doing shamanic breathwork.
That's amazing. You have the both sides of the brain.
I mean,
kind of working on
we are here as humans.
Yeah.
Like you need to have spreadsheets. You need to you need to do things.
You got to stay organized. You have to have Monday.com and all of your little. I know we do,
right?
Because I can't just be. No, it's like the organization is so powerful.
But I think there's also like there are these really deep, wild parts of who we are that like want to experience, like the universe and to experience like these quantum, parts of who we are. Yeah. And I think sometimes people too feel like, they either have to be like very, I don't know, like Bhakti Fest, like out here, or have to be really rooted and kind of
like
robotic.
An accountant.
And I tend to work with people that maybe, are, again, not just corporate, but they have, I always say that there's usually somebody that has like a spiritual part of them that's in the closet.
Oh.
Right? And they're looking for it to come out
and
of the
you
closet.
can pull it out.
I can see it. I'm like, oh yeah. Like I had this one client and I didn't even know her. She like somehow started following me on Instagram and like a couple days later signed up for my human design. I have like a human design group where I teach people.
Oh, that's amazing.
About like the foundations, how to read your chart, how to get an understanding of your kids and your husband.
Neat.
Or
I
maybe,
love that.
Or maybe people that work with you on your team, so you can understand the different
where
personalities.
Everybody is. Yeah.
Why people are the way they are.
Well, yeah.
It's usually in this map. It's so cool. And then, so she signed up for it. She's like, I don't know. I just signed up for it because it was the first thing that you had that's like right away. And she's like, I don't know why. I just feel really drawn to you. But she was like a VP at, a tech company, a huge tech company, like a kind of like a Verizon or something like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, but I'm like, I'm like a very like VP woman.
Yeah. In the corporate world.
Yeah. She's like, and I literally don't even know you. I don't know what human design is even. She's like, I don't even know if I want to learn about human design, but I just feel this really strong pull.
She was drawn to you.
And so I love to like have people like follow that, because what has evolved for her, like I also read the Akashic records for people, and you know, I didn't even remember this, but she like contacted me. So we worked together in that group, and then she did my other group coaching. That's 3 months. It's like for a group, you know, a whole group of women to do the coaching together.
Okay, that's so you have a lot of different things you offer.
I love it. Yeah, because I want to start something.
Yeah, and like
it's exciting, right? Yeah. And then if things start to feel like the energy is like complete, then
you can do something. You do individual, some group.
I like to move. Yeah. It's like that manifester again.
Yeah. You're like,
and you know, like that has helped me accept that part of myself, because I think when you go into a business, I don't know if I'm sure you've heard this, like you have to niche. You have to niche in order to be successful. And I'm like...
They try to tell me that. I'm like, no.
I'm like, that's not me. And when I learned about human design, it was like, no, you're not supposed to niche as a manifester. You're supposed to like be engaged with what you're wanting to inform and initiate. And then when it feels like it's complete, it's time to move on to the next thing.
Then that's your perfect thing.
Right?
Yeah.
So she came into that group, and then she did like a little bit of one-on-one work. I think it was either for like 3 or 6 months. And then we did one of these like Akashic records. It's interesting. And I mean, I don't really remember them because I'm in another like zone.
Yeah. It sounds like you go somewhere else.
But she kept the notes down. And then it was like maybe a couple of years later, it was last year, it was like last fall, she reached out to me. She's like, I cannot believe it. She's like, these things that you said that didn't make any sense at the time. She was like, you told me I was going to be working with rainbows, and I literally thought you were full of shit.
Yeah, thanks. And unicorns too. See you later, Gwen. Yeah.
And, you know, sitting on shells in a pool, right?
Yeah.
No, but she's like, she's like, you told me I was going to be working and studying with the Star of David, like a couple of other very specific things.
Very
she's
specific,
like,
yeah.
I had no idea what it meant at the time. And she's like, you kept telling me like more will be revealed. It'll all start to make sense. It'll happen. And she's like, I'm literally doing everything that you talked about on this list. And she's like, I never thought that I would be this type of person. But she's like, I'm this type of person.
But she was called to you.
Right? But I think it's like I think so many people are starting to wake up to these really deep spiritual parts of who they are. And I also think that like we don't have to leave what we do in order to be spiritual. Like there's actually been a few times where I've kind of been pulled back into that more analytical world, and just like I did before, I don't question it now. Like I don't make it wrong. Like I'm just like, okay, that's like spirit is kind of pulling me back here, so I'll lean into this for this contract or for this like short thing. And it's so cool as to like what gets revealed. Wow. Instead of judging it, you know, because I think at first I kind of judged like, no, I'm over here, and I said I was going to be over here in this world now, and like that's it, right? But I think it's just staying open, because what I'm learning is that we still have a very human world, and if everyone is working in the Akashic records, who's gonna like do the accounting?
Be in the world, yeah. Who's gonna be on the ground?
Who's gonna be the nurse?
Yeah.
When you as a healer need to go to the hospital, who's gonna like be the doctor? Who's gonna be the architect that like helps your home become what you want it to be? Yeah. And so I love working with people, and like I've learned how to be this too. That just because you also like have these gifts doesn't mean you have to blow up like your human life. And simultaneously, sometimes you might leave the top architecture, partnership that you earned and that you worked so hard for in order to move to this thing. But sometimes you can still be that spiritual deep self, like in that work that you're doing. Like, don't we need more of that? In all the
bringing
different
the spiritual side into this, into
these
which I really like to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yes.
And you do that.
Well, I try to do that. Yeah. As, like real estate therapist, that's what I call myself. Because it's a lot of...
Totally.
It's a lot for people to go through.
Real estate is like, that's one of the scariest things, right, for people to do. Mm-hmm. Right. I think so many professions are.
Yeah. And
are truly.
You need people that really want to listen and help you.
And so one of the things I also really feel called to do is to bring kind of these spiritual leadership tools to more corporate environments.
Yeah, I feel like
and let them know that it doesn't have to mean that you're weird or you're not grounded or you're
so woo-woo now.
You're so woo-woo that you can't even relate to paying bills and
oh God, no, they can coexist.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I just want to help people know that they can coexist.
Yes.
That you can be really, really deeply spiritual and be really mired in your accounting firm.
Yeah, of course. I love that. Well, I feel like that's what you've done. That's what I've heard over the years.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing. Well,
we got to get your human design. I can't wait.
We're getting in on that. And so everybody will have to get in touch with you. And how can everybody get in touch with you?
They can reach out on my website,
yeah,
gwendittmar.com, or Instagram, Gwen Dittmar.
Yeah.
Same. They could sign up for my newsletter.
Yeah.
That way they'll be informed of everything. And also, too, I have a podcast. I usually only go through seasons, though. So,
oh, yeah. Well,
there's going to be a new season. This new season is all about women's health.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The different phases of women's health that women go through and how to really empower yourself through those.
Yeah.
From all different types of perspectives, doctors, healers, etc.
Yeah. I have a lot of girls that should be on yours.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I love those names.
Connecting everybody. That's
totally.
My favorite thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jasmine's going to be on.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
A couple of others too.
Yeah.
That I met
I know. From the group. Yeah. So I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Thanks
so
for
happy
having me.
you were on. Yeah. Love you. Okay. Bye. I'm Shelton Wilder, and welcome to Wilder Possibilities Podcast, where each episode follows an entrepreneur's journey into the transformative power of that light bulb moment where everything clicks. I call that the click. Those pivotal points that redefine our futures, illuminate paths to success, and even change the world. Now let's get wilder.